Hey guys, Anthony from Go Industrial here. Today we've got a Graco ThermoLazer 300TC. This is a part of the Graco ThermoLazer range. There are 3 units in that range, the 200TC, the 300TC, and then also the Pro Melt unit. We'll go over some of the differences between the 3 in a minute. But specifically with this unit, what have we got here? So this unit is made to apply thermoplastic coatings. Essentially, in this case, thermoplastic is just a melted plastic that gets applied onto the road. It's an extra hard longevity line, typically used in high traffic areas where there's a lot of vehicle traffic and visibility is key. In the Australian market, you typically have 3 ways of applying paint. You've got water-based coatings. You do also have solvent coatings, but in Queensland in particular, it's all water-based on the roads. And then you also have thermoplastic, which is applied through a unit like this, or you can get what's known as preformed plastic, where it comes in preformed sheets or specific sizes on rolls, and it gets laid on the road and then melted into the surface. In this case, we're actually melting the material in this drum and then applying it on the road with this lever here. The next one you have is cold applied plastic, which is actually a 2-part chemical. You usually have part A, which is the material, and then part B, which is the catalyst. And this is similar to thermoplastic, where it's extremely hard, it's extremely long wearing. It's just a different application style. Some governments and councils require different specifications and have different preferences on how they apply these types of lines. So if you want to apply thermoplastic, or you already apply thermoplastic, what are your options that Go Industrial provide? Well, we provide the ThermoLazer units through Graco, and these come in 3 options as mentioned. You've got the 200TC, which is a 95 kilo drum capacity, and then you've got the 300TC, this model here, which is 135 kilo capacity, and then you've also got a Pro Melt, which looks very similar to this unit. It's also 135 kilo capacity, but it's got additional burners to melt the product even faster. So with your 200TC, you're looking at about 2.5 hours of melt time without a pre-melt. With a 300TC, you're looking at about 4.5 hours of melt time without a pre-melt. And then with a Pro Melt, you're looking at about an hour and a half. So the Pro Melt definitely does cut that melting time down significantly. And if you don't have a pre-melt, then a Pro Melt unit, I know I'm getting pre-melt, Pro Melt, and we'll go into what a pre-melt is, but if you don't have a pre-melt unit already, I'd recommend going with the Pro Melt, just because it does melt so much faster, and then you don't have to wait as long in between batches. You can load in your product, melt it down, lay the lines, go again, and you don't have to wait up to 4.5 hours to melt your product. What is a pre-melt unit? Essentially a pre-melt unit, it's kind of like this. It's got a large reservoir or a large drum, and it has burners on it. Typically you melt them to trucks and they run as support vehicles. So you'll have a larger capacity pre-melted in a drum mounted to a truck that follows you on site, and when you run out of material in this unit, you simply just pull up to the pre-melter, open the hatch. It's got a chute that runs in, and you just open up and load up pre-melted product in here. That way it keeps it melted in here and you don't have to worry about any delay at all. Large government agencies or large contractors typically have a pre-melt unit, and we also supply them here at Go Industrial as well. So if you want to see that, or you've got any questions about that, leave a comment below and we can definitely share information on that. Back to this unit. What are some of the features with this unit? With the 300TC in particular, you get a larger reservoir to hold your material. You also get a inbuilt gravity bead tank for dispensing beads. You have this lever here, which actually moves some plates on the inside to keep the material mixing. They just move up and down. You have a dual burner system underneath the unit, which comes standard. You also have the thermostat control, which controls the temperature on this side. On the other side here, you've got your lever to actually release the thermoplastic product from the main tank to the screep boxes. You have a temperature dial here to measure the temperature, and as they get heavier, it's on a spring, which releases the product. And then you've also got the burners underneath, which preheat the road and also heat the plastic as it's coming down the chute. And you've also got your burner wand, so you can do pre-melt and also light the burners here. You've got an additional regulator also with a gauge that measures the bottle pressure. So that way we can make sure that your bottle's full and that you've got the right amount of pressure and there's no safety issues. We have a burner here, which keeps the thermoplastic product melted as it's coming down the chute. And as mentioned, we've got on-off valves here as well at each point to isolate the gas, so that way we can make sure that we're as safe as possible. This feeds the main burner, and we've also got these valves here which allow for more or less oxygen. Again, we've got more valves here, so each line has its own independent on-off valve, and we've also got our over temperature gauge here. If the unit reaches a temperature that is higher than what it's rated for, this will kill the whole system and turn it off, and then it can also be reset under here as well. You've got the EasyGlide system on this unit, so it'll pull straight, or you can lift this trigger here to make it rotate with the front wheel unlocking. You've got a foot brake at the back here for safety if you're on any uneven surfaces, and you've also got a tow ball hitch here as well. So this unit can be mounted to a line driver unit, so you can have a ride on behind it and do higher production jobs. The unit also has a basic pointer built into it, so you can keep on track and make sure that your alignment is correct when laying your thermo. So with the whole range of ThermoLazers, essentially what you get is you get a bead dispenser, you get a drum for the thermoplastic material, and you also get a stick wand, which can be used for pre-melt. It's also used to light the burners. In the case of the 200TC, you use the stick to actually light the main kettle underneath the reservoir, but in this case it's got its own pilot ignition under the kettle, so that lights independently. It's just the road heaters on the back that you have to light with the wand when using them. The units come with what's called flex dies and smart dies. On the 200TC, it's the flex die system, and on the 300 and the Pro Melt, it's the SmartDie system. And essentially, these are the attachments, or the shoes they are sometimes referred to, that get attached to the units to lay certain widths of line. So these come in a wide range, but here in Australia, your typical line widths are 80 centimeters, 100 centimeters, 150 centimeters, and then also you can get 80, 80, 80, or 100, 100, 100. What that means is 100 mil line, 100 mil gap, and then 100 mil line, and it's a shoe or a screed attachment that fits to the unit, where it's got two individual chutes that the product will run down and then lay onto the road with the gap predetermined. That wide range of sizes is available for all three models, so the flex die system and the SmartDie system on either the 200, the 300 or the Pro Melt. Another cool feature with this unit in particular is the bead tank is actually connected to the rear wheel, so the faster you move, the more bead that's applied. It's a pretty cool system. It means that you get the right amount of bead applied depending on how fast you're moving, and so you don't have to worry about inconsistencies in the bead that you're laying into your paint. An incredibly important thing is safety. Now in Australia, when it comes to operating a gas appliance unit, there are a lot of safety regulations and rules around this, and it does vary state to state. So if you're unsure with what the requirements are in your state or what you need to do to make your unit compliant in your state, feel free to reach out. We handle these units nationally, and we can also organize certification in all states. Unfortunately for us, or fortunately for us, Queensland has the strictest requirements when it comes to gas certification. That's where we're based here, and that's also where this unit is being delivered. So getting this unit certified was no easy feat at all. It took a lot of work and a lot of changes in order to make this unit compliant. And it's a cost that you should consider when you're thinking about purchasing a piece of equipment like this. Again, we do all the certification here for you, so if you've got any questions or you want a complete price on what that looks like, we can help you with that certainly. In this situation, what we've had to do is change quite a few things. So very simply, every single fitting and every single hose and every single line that touches gas has to be Australian certified. And what that means is all the lines and all the regulators that came standard on this unit unfortunately weren't on that list, so we had to swap them out for ones that were. So what are those requirements? Well, every single item that touches gas, that's all the hoses, all the valves, all the fittings, they all have to be on the Australian Standards Register. Unfortunately, these units come standard with a whole bunch of gear and fully set up and working perfectly. There's no real fault with it, but unfortunately, they're not on the Australian standard list. And that means they've all got to be replaced with ones that are. So in this unit, we've swapped out all the lines, all the regulators. We've had to install an additional e-stop at the back end. We've also had to install an over temp regulator. So if the unit overheats for whatever reason, it'll shut off. We've had to install an additional regulator at the gas bottle, and we've also had to tune it to make sure that there's not going to be any gas leaking from the system at all for any reason. We've also had to add additional valves at every point where a gas line runs. So from the tank to the main burners, there's an extra on-off valve. From the regulator to the back section where we've got our thermo boxes, where we've got our screet boxes, our back burners, and also our stick burner. There's valves for all those as well to control them on off. Not just relying on the factory standard twist valves here. All these changes along with the risk assessment has made this unit compliant, and it means that according to the Australian Gas Certification Board, this appliance is now compliant. We've also had to get a special Section 15 application done for the pilot regulator, which actually controls the main burner. Because that part couldn't be replaced and wasn't on the Australian register, we applied for a Section 15, which means that it gets an exemption and is allowed to be used and signed off as a safe piece of equipment, a part of this accessory. Now, this gas certification has to be done for every single unit sold individually. It's not just a blanket where we say, okay, we've done it on the 300TC model, so now every unit we sell is fine. Nope. Unfortunately, we have to do it for every single unit, so that cost is factored in for every single unit. So again, inquire, we can help you out with that depending on which state you're in and what requirements are for that state. Essentially, it's something to consider when planning to purchase the unit. It has to get done at the beginning of the unit before the unit's compliant and able to be used on the roads, and it also has to get done every year along with a schedule to ensure that it stays compliant. Although it has to be done for each individual unit, Go Industrial, we've worked hard to actually come up with the recipe for what needs to be done, so we know exactly what needs to be done and how to do it to ensure that the process is done right, it's done fast, and it's done cost effectively. When it comes to any federal or state government council requirements, it's an absolute must-have and a non-negotiable. What can happen if you're running these units on a site and you don't have the certification? Essentially, if a gas inspector comes to the site and they inspect your equipment and they deem it is not suitable or it is not up to Australian standard, it is not certified, then they have the authority to actually shut down the job site and essentially decommission the piece of equipment until you get those changes rectified. So it can actually be fairly costly. There are potential fines associated with it as well, so it's definitely something you want to consider when looking at the unit. To my knowledge, there is no solution out the box in Australia where you can purchase a unit like this and it has all those changes pre-made and all the certification done. To my knowledge, it does not exist, and that's why we've worked really hard to actually make that possible for this unit. Yes, it does cost a little bit extra, but it makes sure that you're safe, it adds some extra features to the unit, and it makes sure that you're compliant with whatever the regulation is. Awesome, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, make sure you leave a like, subscribe so you can see more content. We're going to be making a lot more content when it comes to road marking equipment and pavement equipment. So if you're interested in that, leave a comment below on what specific questions you want answered or what specific equipment you want to see. If you've got any inquiries, please reach out. We're always happy to help, and happy marking.